New Zealand. It's been my home for over 25 years, but I never chose to live here. Before I share with you what it's like to live in New Zealand, let me give you some context. So I'm sort of in this little bit of a strange world where I've spent all of my childhood in South Africa and then all of my time being an adult in New Zealand. Generally, when people are adults, they choose to immigrate somewhere of their choice, or generally people come over with their parents when they're a bit younger, and so they actually have a bit of a childhood in the country that they're immigrating to. So that is some context to keep in mind when I'm sharing with you my experiences of living here. What do I love about New Zealand? At the very top of the list has to be nature. There is just so much of it around. It is very accessible. It is free. We don't have to pay to go into our national parks. There's coast around New Zealand for miles and miles. It's really easy to get to a beach. The beaches are usually quite empty. You can have a space very easily to yourself. There are lots of rivers. There are mountains. There are bushwalks outside of the national parks. I have to say that it is the thing that I love most about New Zealand. It's just the ability to get out and enjoy nature. The second thing I would have on my list is New Zealand is just a very easy country to live in. There's relatively low crime. It's very easy to raise a family here. My kids have a lot of freedom. They walk to school by themselves. They can walk to the library. They can walk to the supermarket. They have a lot of freedom to explore the suburb and just do things by themselves, which I really highly value. There's also a lot of free things to do with children. So we could easily go to playgrounds or parks. There are numerous ones where we live that we can choose from. I would also say people here are not generally very status conscious or worried about worldly possessions. So nobody's really going to care what sort of car you drive, what sort of job you have, how much money you have. People care more about whether you're a decent human. The third thing on my list is the types of fruit that you get here. There's a lot of cherries here and a lot of different types of berries. Those are not fruit that I grew up with in South Africa, so I really enjoy eating those. The last thing on my list is New Zealand seem to really care about the environment. So they do a lot of work to get rid of invasive species, whether it be introduced animals or even plants to protect the native wildlife. They also go to great lengths to get rid of plastic. So New Zealand really tries to look after the environment, and that's something that I value. There's a lot to love about living in New Zealand, but just like any country, it's not perfect. So I'm going to share with you what I consider some of the negatives of living here from my own personal perspective. I think firstly, I would definitely say it's the distance from the rest of the world. It's relatively close to Australia and the Pacific Islands, but if you love travelling as much as I do and you want to go to other places, it is really far away and it is really expensive. And then to add to that is because we have such a small population, we don't ever get any of the loyalty benefits that you see from a lot of other countries with credit cards, hotels, etc. So we basically pay for every single thing full price. There are no bonuses anywhere to be had. The next downside I would say is just the lack of variety of landscapes. So coming from South Africa and having been to the US, I just love those big red rocks, the slot canyons, the deserts, just the variety. I really miss those in New Zealand. There are places where you can see some interesting rock formations, and I always love driving down the desert road because that reminds me of my childhood. But generally New Zealand is green and blue and it is beautiful, but it would be nice to have some variety sometimes. The third thing on my list is tropical fruit. I really miss tropical fruit. I grew up with lychees, guavas, pineapples, papayas. In New Zealand, you don't really get those, and when you do, they are horrendously expensive. I think I have paid $20 for 5 lychees once, about $60 a kilo. So really, really expensive. You just don't eat that stuff here. And when you can buy them, generally they don't taste very good anyway because they've been sitting in fridges for a very, very long time. So eat those when you go to Australia and the Pacific Islands. The last item on my list really is with the weather. New Zealand has wonderful temperate climate, so you can always do some things, but I really do miss those warm, long, hot summers that I grew up with in South Africa. I currently live in Wellington, so we're not known to have the best weather, and if you go to different parts of New Zealand you can get some hotter summers, but in Wellington usually we would be happy with about a week in the summer where the weather is decent. So as you can see, I'm wearing my puffer, and this is my wardrobe for about 6 months of the year. So in conclusion, New Zealand is truly a beautiful place. It's a wonderful place to live. It is a wonderful place to raise children. But I do ask myself sometimes, as an adult, would I have chosen to live here if it was my choice? Thank you for watching my personal ramblings about New Zealand. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them. Please put them down in the comments. Thank you.